Have you ever noticed how we move through life as if it's endless? We chase money like we'll always have time to spend it. We hold grudges like we'll have forever to forgive. We put off dreams, delay apologies, avoid the truth. As if death doesn't have our name written somewhere on its list. But deep down we know. We know that this life has an expiration date. And still, we behave like we're immortal. Why? Is it denial? Is it fear? Or is it something even deeper? From the moment we're born, society hands us a script: go to school, get a job, buy a house, raise a family. And somewhere in that script, the idea of death, the raw, unfiltered truth that we will die, gets buried. Not just beneath responsibilities, but beneath distractions. Think about it. When was the last time you stared into the mirror and asked yourself, what if this is my final year? What would I stop doing? What would I finally do? Most of us don't ask these questions because they scare us, because they threaten the illusion we've built, that we have time. But here's the truth the Buddha understood: impermanence is the only permanence. Everything that rises will fall. Everyone we love will die. And one day, so will we. But don't let that frighten you. Let it wake you up. Because when you start living with death in your awareness, you stop wasting time on things that don't matter. You stop arguing to be right. You stop pretending you're fine when you're breaking inside. You stop delaying joy, and you start living with intention. Buddhism doesn't ask us to obsess over death. It simply asks us to remember it, not to be morbid, but to be free. You see, the illusion of endless time is the foundation of most suffering. We say yes to things we hate because we think we'll always have time to change paths. We stay in toxic relationships, hold on to regret, avoid hard conversations, because tomorrow always feels available, until it is. And here's the paradox: the moment you truly realize you'll die is the moment you finally start to live. There's a story in Zen about a man who's running from a tiger. He slips off a cliff, grabs a vine, and hangs there. Above him, the tiger waits. Below him, another one. And just as his grip starts to slip, he notices a wild strawberry growing on the vine. He picks it, he eats it, and he says, "How sweet it tastes." That's what it means to live awake, not to escape death, but to savor life, even with death breathing down your neck. So ask yourself, if today was your last, would you still do what you're doing? Would you still scroll through social media numbly? Would you still chase the approval of people who don't even know you? Would you still wait for the right time to speak your truth? Or would you pause, breathe, and finally begin? We live like we'll never die, but the Buddha said, of all footprints, that of the elephant is supreme. Of all mindfulness meditations, that on death is supreme. Because death isn't the enemy. For the awakened mind, it's the mirror that shows you how to live. So now, as we peel back the illusions, as we look deeper into the truths we've long avoided, there's something even more haunting and more liberating than death itself. It's the question, if the self is an illusion, who is it that lives, who dies? And if you're ready for that answer, the one the Buddha gave without ever uttering a single absolute, then let's go deeper. Because where we're headed next, you may never look at yourself the same way again. Have you ever tried to hold on to a moment? A perfect sunset, a joyful laugh, a warm touch, only to feel it slipping through your fingers, like sand no matter how tightly you grasp. This is the silent law that governs all of life. Everything changes, nothing lasts, and no matter how much we resist it, impermanence will always win. In Buddhism, this reality has a name, Anicca. It's not just a concept, it's not just poetry. It's the very nature of existence itself. Let's pause for a second. Look around, the people in your life, the emotions you're feeling right now, even the body you're living in. They are all in motion. All of it is rising, peaking, fading, and eventually disappearing. Yet what do we do as humans? We cling. We cling to youth, to love, to security. We hold on to identities, relationships, possessions, as if they were ours forever. But the truth is, nothing you have today is guaranteed tomorrow. And that's not meant to frighten you. It's meant to wake you up, because in that very truth is where freedom lives. Think about it. Why do we suffer so much? When something ends, a job, a relationship, the passing of someone we love, it's because deep down, we believed it should have lasted forever. That's the illusion. We don't suffer because things change. We suffer because we expected them not to. Buddha didn't teach impermanence to make us anxious. He taught it to help us let go, to stop grasping for permanence in a world that is constantly shifting. And it's in this letting go that we start to live fully. Imagine standing at the shore, watching waves crash, rise, dissolve, and knowing you can never hold one. That's life. We are standing at the edge of the ocean of change. We can either drown in our resistance or float with acceptance. Anicca isn't just about loss, it's also hope. Because the pain you're feeling, it will pass. The anxiety that grips your chest at night, it too will fade. Even the darkest moments, they are just clouds passing through the sky. The truth of impermanence reminds us to cherish what is here, not cling to it, but honor it. That laugh with your child, that morning sunlight on your skin, that breath you're taking right now. Each moment is a gift, because none are promised. So how do we begin to live with Anicca? We start by noticing. Notice how your thoughts come and go. Notice how emotions arise and dissolve. Notice how everything, yes, everything, is in constant transformation. And instead of holding, we learn to bow to each moment. Yes, even the painful ones, because pain too is impermanent. And by allowing it to flow through us, without fighting it, we free ourselves from its grip. There's a Zen story of a man chased by a tiger to the edge of a cliff. He grabs a vine and dangles, only to see another tiger waiting below. And then he sees a strawberry growing near the vine. He picks it, tastes it, and says, "Delicious." That's what it means to live with impermanence, to taste the strawberry, even when tigers are all around. This is not denial. This is presence. This is clarity. This is what it means to truly live. Because when we accept Anicca, we are no longer afraid of change. We are no longer broken by loss. We don't waste time trying to hold still a life that was never meant to be still. And when we no longer fear the end, we can finally begin. Close your eyes for a moment. Let the noise settle. Now ask yourself one simple question. Who am I? Not your name, not your job, not your gender, age, or nationality. Strip away the layers, your memories, your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs. And ask again in that deep silence within, who are you really? This question isn't just philosophical, it's existential. It lies at the heart of Buddhist wisdom. And the Buddha's answer to this question was so radical, so shattering, that it still rattles the very foundation of our identity today. There is no permanent self, no fixed I, no eternal soul. This teaching is called Anatta, the doctrine of no self, and it's one of the most misunderstood yet most liberating insights in Buddhism. Let's dive in. We grow up believing in a fixed identity. From childhood, we're told who we are. You're smart, you're shy, you're strong, you're sensitive. Then we go through life trying to live up to or escape from those labels. We build a personality, a resume, a story we keep repeating to ourselves. This is who I am. I like this. I hate that. I could never forgive. I'm just not that type of person. But here's what the Buddha pointed out. All those things we cling to, thoughts, emotions, preferences, memories, they're constantly changing. None of them are fixed, and none of them truly are you. Take a moment to notice your own thoughts. They arise, they pass. Sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're anxious. Sometimes you feel confident. Other times you doubt everything. If you were any of these things truly and permanently, they wouldn't change. But they do, every moment. Let's say you had a rough childhood. You were told you were worthless. You were made to believe you'd never be loved. Now fast forward 20 years. You've grown, you've healed, you've helped others. Are you still that same worthless child? Of course not. That version of you no longer exists. So who are you now? And who will you be tomorrow? This is the truth the Buddha asked us to look at deeply. That what we call the self is just a bundle of processes. Thoughts, sensations, perceptions, consciousness. All constantly arising and fading like ripples in a stream. There's no unchanging core. No soul watching from behind the curtain. Only this flowing, ever-shifting experience we call me. Now this might sound unsettling. We're so used to clinging to identity. We want to be someone. We want to matter. We want something solid to hold on to. But here's the beauty of Anatta. It's not saying you're meaningless. It's saying you're not limited. You're not fixed. You're not trapped in your past. You're not bound by your mistakes. You are not just this name, this face, this body, this story. You are free. Free to change. Free to evolve. Free to let go. You don't have to keep replaying the same suffering over and over again. You can drop the burden of, I'm not good enough. You can step out of the cage of this is just who I am. Because there is no cage. There is no I in the way you think there is. And this is where peace begins. A Zen master once asked his student, "Show me the self." The student sat in silence, then said, "I looked everywhere, but I couldn't find it." The master smiled. "Then why do you fear death?" That's the essence. When we realize that the self is just a concept, we stop clinging, we stop fearing, and in that space, we begin to live with lightness, clarity, and deep compassion. Because if there's no fixed me, then there's also no fixed you. We're all part of the same great unfolding, each of us changing, flowing, learning together. So the next time someone asks, "Who are you?" you might smile and say, "I'm just a wave in the ocean, here for a while, and that's enough." And speaking of waves, there's another force that keeps these waves spinning in endless circles. A force even stronger than desire or fear. To understand it is to break the cycle of suffering once and for all. Let's explore that next. We speak of death as if it's a wall, a hard stop, the great silence that swallows everything. But the Buddha never saw it that way. In fact, death in the eyes of awakened wisdom is not an ending at all. It is simply a change of form, a doorway, a return. When a flame flickers out, do we say the fire has died? Or do we understand that the heat, the energy, the light has merely shifted, passed on, become something else? That is how the Dhamma views death, not as extinction, but as transformation. You see, in the West, we often fear death because we are taught to believe in the permanence of a self. We cling to identities like they're carved in stone. This is who I am. This is my story. This is my life. But when the breath leaves the body, we're suddenly forced to confront the question, what now? The Buddha offered a radical answer. Nothing truly dies because nothing truly stood still to begin with. Let's pause here. Think of the waves crashing onto a beach. They come and go, rise and fall. But did the ocean ever disappear? Did the water cease to exist? No, it simply moved, shifted its expression. That's what death is. The wave dissolving back into the ocean. What we call death is really the end of one conditioned form. But the elements that made that form, the body, the mind, the karma, they ripple onward. In Buddhism, this is seen through the lens of dependent origination, the idea that all things arise because of conditions. And when those conditions change, so too does the thing. There is no fixed soul, no unchanging me that travels from life to life. But there is continuity, like a flame passed from candle to candle. The new flame is not the same, but it was lit by the old. So then, what dies? The temporary arrangement we call you. Your body returns to earth. Your thoughts cease like the fading echo of a bell. But the karma, the intentional energy you've generated through every act, word, and thought, that doesn't vanish. It plants seeds. It carries forward. That's why in Buddhism, the death of the body is not the end. It's a point of transition. It's like switching trains on a long journey. You're not where you began, and you're not yet at the final stop, but the ride continues. Now some may ask, but where do we go? And the truth is, it depends. Not on belief, but on your mind. Your final moments are like the direction of a stream. The Buddha said that the state of your consciousness in the instant before death holds great weight. If you've cultivated peace, compassion, and clarity, the current flows toward lighter realms. If your life was dominated by hatred, greed, and ignorance, the current pulls you toward suffering. This is not punishment, it's gravity. Cause and effect, it's natural law. That's why monks meditate on death, not to be morbid but to be free. When you understand that death is just a transformation, you no longer fear it. You prepare for it. You live fully because you know time is short. And you let go not with bitterness but with grace. Let me tell you a story. A monk once asked a Zen master, "What happens when we die?" The master replied, "I don't know." The monk said, "But you're a Zen master." He said, "Yes, but I'm not dead yet." That's the point. No one truly knows what's on the other side. But what we do know is how we live now determines the nature of our transition. Imagine death as a sunset. Most people cry because they believe the sun is gone. But those who understand, they just turn around and watch the sunrise on the other side of the world. Death is not darkness, it's movement. And just like the seasons, just like the breath, just like the thoughts in your mind, everything returns in a new form, in a new time. The Dhamma teaches us not to wait for the moment of death to understand this truth. If we can die to the illusion of permanence now, in this very life, then we are no longer its prisoner. And what's left is peace. A deep, silent, unshakable peace. A peace that no death can touch. And from here, we begin to explore the truth of rebirth, not just as a cycle of bodies, but as a spiritual momentum that carries through lifetimes. So now let's turn to what really fuels this journey: karma, the invisible thread connecting each transformation to the next. Have you ever found yourself paralyzed by fear? Not because you were in danger, but because your mind painted 1,000 terrifying outcomes. You weren't being chased, you weren't falling, and yet your heart raced, your breath grew shallow, and your thoughts spiraled like leaves in a hurricane. Fear is an ancient survival tool, and yet in modern life it's often misplaced. It's no longer the tiger in the jungle we're afraid of, but the email from our boss, the medical results that haven't come in yet, the silence from someone we love, the thought of death, or worse, being forgotten. But here's a radical Buddhist truth: fear is not the enemy, fear is the teacher. Imagine this: you're standing in the middle of a vast field and a storm rolls in. Thunder crashes, wind howls, everything is chaos. That storm is fear. But at the very center of that storm is a calm, quiet space, the eye. Buddhism teaches us that mindfulness is the doorway to this eye. It's not about running from fear. It's about walking right into it, awake, aware, and unwavering. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha didn't tell us to fight fear or suppress it. He instructed us to observe it clearly and without judgment. There is fear in me, we say, like a scientist noting a reaction in a lab. Not "I am afraid," because we are not fear. We are the awareness that notices fear. This practice, though simple, is not easy. Fear is slippery. It disguises itself as urgency, anger, avoidance, or numbness. It makes you think you need to fix something now, but mindfulness doesn't rush. Mindfulness sits, it watches. And through this watching, something miraculous happens. Fear begins to soften. Let's go back to that storm metaphor. Picture yourself in meditation or simply sitting quietly, tuning into your body. You feel the tightness in your chest. You hear the thoughts galloping across your mind. You sense the sweat on your palms. And instead of resisting it, you let it be. You whisper, "Yes, I see you." And like a wild animal no longer hunted, fear loses its frantic energy. It begins to rest. You may recall the Zen koan. If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. It's shocking at first, but its message is clear. Don't cling to any fixed image, even of safety or perfection. That includes our fantasies of a life without fear. The aim isn't to eliminate fear, but to see it so clearly that it can no longer control us. This is the heart of equanimity, one of the 4 sublime states in Buddhism. Equanimity doesn't mean we don't care. It means we care deeply without being swept away. In fear's presence, we remain grounded. Like a mountain unmoved by howling winds, our awareness remains still. Let me share a simple yet profound story. A monk was walking through the forest at night. Suddenly, he heard a roar and saw the outline of a tiger. His heart pounded, but instead of running, he bowed. "Ah," he said, "so you've come." And he continued walking slowly, one step at a time. The tiger disappeared. Later, he would say, "It was not a tiger outside, it was the tiger in my mind." That tiger visits us too, in hospital waiting rooms, in job interviews, in sleepless nights. But what if, like the monk, we bowed to it? This is not passivity, it is deep courage. Because the true warrior in Buddhism isn't the one who fights others, but the one who conquers the battlefield within. Fear says, "This moment is dangerous." Mindfulness replies, "This moment is just a moment, let's see it clearly." In neuroscience today, we know this is not just spiritual poetry. Mindfulness practice rewires the brain. It tames the amygdala, the center of fear response, and strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the seat of rational thinking and compassion. Science catches up slowly to what the Buddha taught 2,600 years ago. But mindfulness is not a technique to get rid of fear. That's just another form of control. It's an invitation to befriend it, to walk with it, to say, "You may come along, but you won't drive the car." So what can you do when fear grips you next time? Pause, breathe, place your attention on one sensation, the breath, the soles of your feet, the sound around you. Name the fear gently: tightness, dread, worry. Then just watch. Like a parent watching a child throw a tantrum. You don't shout, you don't run, you just stay. And soon you may feel it. Beneath the trembling there is stillness. Beneath the wave, the ocean floor. And from that stillness, clarity arises. Not the kind that makes fear vanish forever, but the kind that reminds you, you are not lost in the storm. You are the sky that holds it all. This is the training. Not for monks in caves, but for you and me in traffic, in grief, in waiting rooms, in breakups, in life. Every fear becomes a bell, not to panic, but to wake up. And when we wake up, we realize fear was never the enemy. It was just the part of us that didn't want to lose what we loved. And love is never something to fear. Let us now turn our gaze to a question that haunts both the religious and the rational. If there is no solid self, and death is not an end, and fear is just a shadow, then what is it that keeps us coming back to this life? What keeps the wheel turning lifetime after lifetime? That's where we go next. It arrives quietly sometimes. Other times it tears through your life like a monsoon. Grief doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for a convenient moment. It just shows up, raw, relentless, and unapologetically human. There's something hauntingly beautiful about grief, not because it feels good, far from it, but because it reveals the depth of your love. Grief is not a sign of weakness. It's a mirror of your capacity to love someone so deeply, so unconditionally, that even when they're no longer there, your heart still beats in their direction. Buddhism doesn't ask you to stop grieving. It doesn't tell you to move on or suppress it with false strength. Instead, it invites you to sit with your grief, to welcome it like an old friend carrying a sacred message. In Zen, there's a teaching: let your tears water the seeds of compassion. And this is not metaphor. This is spiritual alchemy. Grief, in its essence, is love that has nowhere to go. No more morning coffees together. No more shared laughter or familiar footsteps. But that love, it's still inside you. It hasn't disappeared. It's just searching for a new form, a new outlet. A way to continue existing in a world that's been rearranged by loss. Have you ever sat quietly and noticed how memories arrive uninvited? Not to hurt you, but to remind you that what was shared was real, that what was felt was sacred, and that nothing, truly nothing, is ever wasted in love. You may find yourself holding onto an old sweater, a photo, a voice message, not out of attachment, but because your soul is looking for a way to honor what was. And here lies a powerful truth. Grief becomes suffering only when we resist it, when we try to force ourselves to be okay too soon. But when we open to it gently, patiently, it transforms. It's okay to cry. It's okay to feel broken. It's okay to scream into your pillow at 2 a.m. You're not broken, you're human. And this grief, it is sacred ground. You are walking through a storm with your heart wide open, and that takes courage. In Buddhist psychology, there's a practice called metta, loving kindness. It begins by directing compassion to yourself. You place your hand over your heart and say, "May I be gentle with this pain. May I allow myself to grieve. May I love myself even when I feel lost." Because loss doesn't erase your connection with that person. It simply changes the nature of the connection, from physical to spiritual, from outer dialogue to inner whisper, from being with them to carrying them inside you. And maybe, just maybe, that's what eternity looks like. Not a never-ending timeline, but the way love endures inside our being, echoing softly in the silence between moments. Some days grief will feel like waves crashing over you. Other days it'll be a quiet ache beneath your ribs. But over time, if you let it, it will start to soften. Not disappear, no, but transform. And that's what Buddhist wisdom teaches us again and again. Everything transforms, even pain, even sorrow. So when you find yourself weeping, remember this: your grief is not weakness. It is proof that you dared to love, that you lived fully. And that, my friend, is a sacred thing. You are not alone in your mourning. Every tear joins the collective ocean of humanity's heartbreak. And in that shared ocean, we begin to remember that love never dies. It just changes form. It becomes kindness. It becomes wisdom. It becomes presence. Grief, then, is not something to fix. It's something to feel, to walk with, to learn from, because beneath the ache is still love, unfinished, unspoken, undying. And if you listen closely enough, you'll realize that love is still guiding you, still shaping you, still whispering, "I was here and so were you." And that, perhaps, is the most beautiful truth of all. Have you ever walked along a mountain path where every step could mean balance or a fall into the abyss? That's what life is, a razor's edge. And Impermanence, heedfulness, is the torch that lights your every step. It's not just awareness. It's living as if every moment matters, because it does. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha says, "Heedfulness is the path to the deathless. Heedlessness is the path to death. The heedful do not die. The heedless are as if already dead. Those aren't just words, they're a warning, and they are also a promise. Let's pause for a moment. Look around you. How many people are rushing through their days, scrolling, reacting, consuming, living on autopilot? We eat without tasting, speak without thinking, react without reflecting. And before we realize it, days blur into months and life passes like a dream we forgot to wake from. But when you live with Appamada, everything changes. You begin to notice the way the sunlight touches your skin. You become aware of the space between thoughts, the gap between breath and breath. It's not about being serious or rigid. It's about living fully awake. Noticing when you're falling into patterns. Stopping the momentum of craving, anger, distraction, right when it arises. Heedfulness isn't anxiety. It's not living in fear of doing something wrong. It's a calm attentiveness, a devotion to presence. And it's deeply compassionate. Because when you are truly heedful, you become aware not only of your actions, but their ripple effects. You stop speaking out of habit. You stop hurting others with careless words or silent indifference. The Buddha lived Appamada, and every arahant who walked the path to liberation did so by cultivating this one principle. Not grand gestures, not perfect silence in a cave, just this, wakefulness in this moment, and then the next, and then the next. Think about a candle flame flickering in the wind. To protect that flame, you cup your hands around it. That's what heedfulness is like, cupping your mind, shielding it from the winds of distraction, delusion, and desire. You walk gently, speak clearly, act wisely, not for show, not for perfection, but because every step leaves an imprint in your own heart. Now, let's bring this into your daily life. What would it look like to be heedful in traffic? In an argument, while brushing your teeth? It's not about adding time, it's about adding depth. Heedfulness slows time, not literally, but by giving each moment the weight it deserves. You no longer live at the mercy of the next thing. You no longer chase, you simply are. And in that state, peace becomes natural, not forced, not fabricated, peace that arises from the absence of inner chaos. That's the power of Appamada. It's subtle, unassuming, but it's the difference between sleepwalking through life and awakening. So take this to heart, not as another idea, but as a way of being. You don't need to change everything overnight. Just start by pausing, breathe, notice. And when your mind wants to drift, gently bring it back. Again and again. The storm of life will continue, but with heedfulness, you no longer get swept away. You become the one who stands in the center, calm, clear, free. And from that stillness, you begin to hear something deeper, a whisper of the truth you've always known, a silence that speaks louder than the noise of the world. And that is where the real path begins. Shall we walk a little further? Because the journey doesn't end here. Ahead lies something profound, a truth hidden in plain sight, the teaching of karma, the invisible web of cause and effect, and how everything you do matters more than you realize. Shall we continue? We often imagine karma as a cosmic scoreboard, a divine justice system tallying our sins and virtues, then serving us rewards or punishments in some future life, or perhaps even tomorrow. That's the pop culture version. But that's not how the Buddha explained it. Karma is not about punishment. It's not about vengeance. It's not even about morality in the way we usually understand it. Karma is momentum. It's the ongoing energy created by our intentional actions, mental, verbal, or physical. Every thought you repeat, every word you choose, every pattern of behavior you sustain, these are not isolated. They leave a trace. They build a groove. And that groove determines the shape of your mind and the direction of your life. Imagine a mountain stream. A single drop of water seems insignificant, but drops become trickles, trickles become rivers, and over time that river carves canyons. Your thoughts and actions are those drops. Karma is the canyon. Let's say you react to stress with anger. The first time it happens, it's uncomfortable. You feel bad, but the second time it's a little easier. The third time it's automatic. The mind forms a habit. This habit solidifies into a reaction pattern, and soon you find yourself saying, "I'm just an angry person." But you're not. You're just someone who built a groove so deep it feels permanent. That's karma. It's not judging you. It's not punishing you. It's just following the momentum of your own energy. And the powerful truth is, if karma is momentum, it can be redirected. You're not locked into a life sentence because of your past. The stream can change course, but it won't happen through wishful thinking. You must act intentionally, patiently, with clarity. The Buddha said, "Whatever a person frequently thinks and ponders upon, that will become the inclination of the mind." In other words, you are not your past, you are your repeated choices. So pause and reflect. What are the thoughts you rehearse each day? Are they filled with resentment, regret, self-criticism, or are they grounded in gratitude, curiosity, and peace? Each of those tendencies is forming karma right now, not some distant rebirth. This life, this breath. There's a Zen story that beautifully illustrates this. A monk once asked his teacher, "What is karma?" The teacher replied, "You've already asked." The monk, puzzled, said, "What do you mean?" And the teacher smiled, "Asking is the karma. This is the result." In that moment, the monk realized something profound. Karma isn't far away. It's not some mystical calculation behind the scenes. It's immediate. This thought, this word, this action. And perhaps the most radical insight in Buddhism is this: karma doesn't bind you, your ignorance does. When you act unconsciously, from craving or aversion or delusion, karma becomes heavy. But when you act with mindfulness and wisdom, karma becomes light, flexible, even liberating. In fact, when wisdom is perfect, karma no longer binds at all. That's what the Buddha achieved. He still had karma. He still had a body. He still felt pain, but he didn't cling to it. He didn't identify with it. He was like a candle burning without smoke, present, radiant, but without the residue of reaction. You can begin walking that path too. Not by trying to erase all your past actions, but by no longer feeding them with your present choices. The moment you wake up to your own momentum, you can redirect it. If you've lived a life filled with fear, you can plant seeds of courage. If you've been lost in restlessness, you can begin practicing stillness. Even a deeply grooved habit loses its power when you stop giving it energy. This is the truth behind karma, not punishment, but momentum that can be paused, softened, or reshaped. So don't ask, "What do I deserve?" That's not the question of awakening. Ask instead, "What am I feeding today?" And in that asking, in that moment of stillness between one action and the next, you'll discover something more powerful than fate. You'll find freedom. Now, let's turn toward the direction that gives karma its shape and life its possibility. Intention. Have you ever stood beside a loved one's body, moments after their final breath, and asked yourself, where did they go? The body is still there. The hands you once held, the eyes that once looked into yours, the voice that once laughed with you, it's all silent now. But something unmistakable is missing. Something that was alive. Something that wasn't just flesh. And that something, whatever it is, haunts us, intrigues us, and draws us into one of life's deepest questions. What continues after death? In Buddhist teachings, this isn't a mystery cloaked in fear, but a truth that calls for deep understanding. You see, Buddhism doesn't cling to the idea of an eternal soul, a fixed self that floats out of the body and travels to some static paradise. Nor does it say there's nothing. Instead, it offers something far more nuanced and strangely comforting. Let's start here. You are not a fixed entity. As we explored in the teaching of Anatta, no self, there is no unchanging, permanent you. But just because there's no fixed self doesn't mean that there is no continuity. What moves from life to death is not a soul but a stream, a current, a momentum of consciousness shaped by karma. Think of it like this. When one candle lights another, the flame moves on, but it is not the same flame. Yet it carries the heat, the brightness, the essence forward. In the same way, the life you live now, the intentions you hold, the actions you take, the emotions you nourish, become the conditions for what follows. Death, in this view, is not a cliff you fall off. It's more like a river's bend, where the stream disappears from view only to reappear elsewhere, reshaped by the terrain of karma. And karma here isn't about judgment or cosmic punishment. It's cause and effect. It's the ripples you create with every thought, every word, every choice, ripples that don't stop when the body dies. They echo forward. Imagine throwing a stone into a pond. Even after the stone sinks, the ripples spread. Your consciousness is that ripple. Not a thing, not an object, but a process. A wave of energy and intention that continues, driven by the patterns you've reinforced in this lifetime. And what you carry forward is not just what you've done, but what you've clung to, your attachments, your fears, your desires, your compassion. They all leave impressions on your stream of consciousness, like grooves carved into a path. And when death arrives, these grooves shape where the current flows next. This is why the Buddha emphasized dying with awareness, letting go, and cultivating peace. Because the moment of death isn't just a final breath, it's a pivot point. A doorway, a transformation. Some traditions describe intermediate states, like the Bardo in Tibetan Buddhism, where the disembodied consciousness lingers, facing visions shaped by its own karma. Others speak more symbolically. Death as a continuation, not in place or form, but in tendency. The tendency to grasp or to let go. The tendency to hate or to love. These tendencies don't vanish when the heartbeat stops. They become the seeds of what's next. So what continues after death? Not the name you were given, not your social media accounts, not even the face in the mirror, but the residue of your choices, the flavor of your intentions, the direction of your becoming. And perhaps most beautifully, Buddhism reminds us, this is not out of your control. You shape what continues, right now, with every breath. So the real question isn't just what survives after death. It's what are you cultivating while you're alive? Because whatever it is, that's what follows you. That's what echoes beyond the veil. And as we move forward, there's one more truth we need to confront, not about what comes next, but about how we live right now. Let's talk about awakening, not in a distant heaven or future life, but here in this moment, in this body. There comes a moment, quiet, still, undeniable, when all the questions we've asked collapse into one sacred silence. A space where the self no longer needs to understand, defend, or grasp. It's here, in this silence, that the final realization dawns. Not with fireworks, not with thunder, but with a gentle exhale of truth. Everything we've sought, peace, freedom, clarity, was never somewhere in the distance waiting. It's been here all along, in this breath, in this moment, in this very body and mind that we kept judging, analyzing, and trying to fix. The Buddha didn't teach us how to escape life. He taught us how to truly be alive, to live fully, not by adding more, but by letting go. Letting go of the illusion of permanence, letting go of the craving to be someone, letting go of the fear of not becoming enough, and most profoundly, letting go of the illusion that we are separate from others, from life, from death. But what does it mean to begin again? It means exactly what it sounds like. To begin this moment without the weight of the past or the anxiety of the future. To see with new eyes. To feel without filters. To sit, breathe, smile, knowing this is it. This is life, unfolding, perfect in its imperfection. You don't need to climb a mountain or renounce the world. You only need to come home to yourself. Right now, it's not dramatic, it's not even mystical. It's deeply, profoundly simple. The final realization isn't about knowing everything. It's about unknowing. It's the courage to say, I don't know what comes after death. I don't need to know, but I will meet it with presence. It's the soft rebellion of stepping out of the conditioned mind and choosing awareness instead. And here's the paradox. When you stop clinging to life, you begin to live. When you stop fearing death, you start to breathe. When you let go of who you think you should be, who you really are begins to shine. What continues after death? No one can say with certainty. But what continues while we're still here is far more urgent. Love, presence, kindness, clarity. These are not concepts, they are practices. They are lived. Each time you choose compassion over judgment, each time you meet fear with understanding, each time you notice a thought and let it go, you're waking up. You're beginning again. And the beautiful truth, you can begin again as many times as it takes. In Zen, there's a saying, each moment is the teacher. Not the past, not a book, not even a guru. This moment, right now, is offering everything you need to awaken. So pause, take a breath. Feel the quiet power of this second. You're not late, you haven't missed your chance, you haven't failed, you're right on time, right here. This is your invitation, not to change your life, but to truly live it. So begin again now. If this message stirred something within you, if it reminded you of who you truly are, then allow yourself to stay connected. Subscribe to Zen Buddhism Wisdom, not just to follow another channel, but to walk alongside a path of awareness, insight, and peace. Let's keep learning, keep breathing, keep remembering that in this very moment, you already have everything you need to begin again. Until next time, may your heart be still and your mind free.